Our top focus this morning, Prime Minister Modi has arrived in Brisbane for the G-20 summit after attending the ASEAN and East Asia summits in Myanmar. Modi is expected to meet British Prime Minister David Cameron and dine with the Japanese Prime Minister today ahead of the two-day summit. The Prime Minister will also begin his India-Australia bilateral with a visit to the Queensland University of Technology in the afternoon. These are live pictures we're getting you of Air India plane touching down in Brisbane. Prime Minister Modi arriving in Australia. The Prime Minister's visit to Australia has a strong business and commerce agenda. Modi is expected to also seek international support on the black money issue. He's also likely to voice his concerns over economic growth that doesn't generate employment. After the summit, Modi will proceed to Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne. In Sydney, a mega event has been planned by the Indian community. Prime Minister Modi will attend a Madison Square Garden-like event at the Sydney Olympic Park. Close to 28,000 people are expected to attend the mega cultural extravaganza. A special train will run from Melbourne to Sydney carrying over 200 passengers who will attend the public address. This is in the first trip to Australia by an Indian Prime Minister in 28 years. Modi will engage with his counterpart Tony Abbott to boost trade, investment, energy and security partnerships. Let's get a word from TV Today's Shweta Singh, who's with us on the phone line. Shweta, take us through the atmosphere there. Are there people who've gathered at the airport to greet the Indian Prime Minister?
Well, Simi, not exactly in Brisbane. Brisbane has a very few Indians here, and the few Indians who are here are professionals. They are either businessmen or they are doctors. A very limited part of Brisbane's population is actually the student community or the youth or the people who would throng to watch Modi, and that's why it's Melbourne and Sydney where the buzz is to have one glimpse of Narendra Modi. Here in Brisbane, it's more about G20, and people are excited. What they want to see is the beast of Barack Obama, rather than the Australians here trying to get a glimpse of Modi. So Narendra Modi has a number of activities planned for the entire day, and hopefully the Indians can get close enough to have a look at their Prime Minister, because right now the level of security would not allow them even a passing glimpse.
Right, and Shweta, we believe that the Prime Minister is expected to meet his British and Japanese counterparts today.
Right, the Japanese Prime Minister is hosting a dinner, so he would meet him over the dinner, while the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom would be meeting Narendra Modi at around 6:45 Brisbane time, which is 4.5 hours ahead of Delhi.
All right, so crucial meetings they're planned. The Prime Minister also expected to kickstart his India-Australia bilateral with a meeting with a visit to Queensland University.
Right, and he'll go there anytime now, though it has restricted access to the media. Only a couple of news agencies are allowed there, but definitely at those places, Simi, there are a handful of students, there are a bunch of students who are expecting that they might get to see or meet Narendra Modi for that matter. So that is one event where we could see some Indian frenzy, and after that there is a press conference happening for the Gandhi Murti unveiling, which is to happen tomorrow. But it is still not very clear, because these are the events which the local Indian community wants Narendra Modi to participate in. But will his G20 commitments and his bilateral meetings on the sidelines of G20 allow him to do this? There is still a big question mark, because the organizers are still not clear. Though they are holding a press conference, they do it with a rider saying that it depends upon the Prime Minister's other activities.
Right, and Shweta, the Prime Minister's visit to Australia has a strong business and commerce agenda. The Prime Minister also looking at some big bilateral takeaways, multilateral takeaways. Really, black money is something that tops his agenda here. True, and all of us are interested in knowing if there could be a bilateral with Barack Obama. There is a strong indication that there might be, but nobody knows what time it could be. Australia, though, Simi, I must say that Australia right now, they are obsessed with Barack Obama or Cameron. But once the G20 ends, definitely Abbott has his sights set on Narendra Modi. What he does
how Australia-India can take their relationship forward, because it is after 28 years that an Indian Prime Minister has come to Australia, though it was for G20, but since he decided to overstay, since he decided to go to Canberra and Melbourne and Sydney, there is much more that Australia is also looking at, and perhaps India can also seek to gain.
Absolutely, and Shweta, lots of excitement around that event in Sydney where the Prime Minister is expected to address the Indian community. There's also a special Modi Express that'll be ferrying people from Brisbane to Sydney.
True, and it's supposed to be very colourful. We've been told that it's going to be dressed up in tricolours. There'll be balloons and there'll be flags and there'll be people in whatever the brightest of attires that they can dress. They've said that they'll stay awake all night. It's an overnight journey, around a 8.5-hour journey from Melbourne to Sydney. They plan to stay awake all night, sing songs. There are a lot of cultural activities planned on the train. And perhaps the entire Australian media, Simi, when we decided that we wanted to take that train as well, we were told that there were already 8 Australian channels on board Modi Express already, because they've never seen something like that. Perhaps it's a chartered train that they're looking at, where all the Modi fans, and they are saying that they're not saying Indians, they're saying the Modi fans are riding that train, and that is why it has been named as Modi Express.
Absolutely, more than 200 people expected to travel on that train, which will be ferrying people from Brisbane to Sydney. These people are expected to participate in that big Sunday event. Achha, lots of excitement around that event that's been planned at the Alphonse Arena by the Indian community.
True, the Superdome is buzzing with activity even now. There are Indians who drop in to just have a look what the Superdome is looking like, what the Alphonse Arena is looking like, because they're trying till the last moment to get a ticket, but it's not possible. Only 16,000 something are expected to be there because of the security of Narendra Modi and the manner in which the stage is being designed. A record 17,103 people were there once for a particular function, and when I asked why haven't you sought to break that record, they said we had our restrictions, otherwise there would be more people than who could fit into the stadium. So there are people still who feel that they might get lucky, might get an entry into the stadium and look at what Narendra Modi is there to speak. But again, just like Madison Square, here as well, there will be giant screens at various places in Sydney where people can listen to Narendra Modi, but only 16,200 something people can go inside, can hope to get inside.
Absolutely, the organisers trying to make the Sydney event a bigger success than the Madison Square Garden event that we saw about 2 months back. If I could describe the pictures on our screens, Prime Minister Modi's plane has landed in Brisbane. Officials waiting for him to walk out. This is a first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Australia in 28 years. Narendra Modi is in Australia to attend the G-20 summit. Today, of course, Shweta, is an off in Brisbane, which is why the Prime Minister using this opportunity to meet David Cameron and Shinzo Abe.
Yes, there is an off in Brisbane for the G20 delegates as well, and for the people of Brisbane as well. They're not used to such security. They've left their homes. They've gone to Gold Coast to holiday because they know their weekend will be spoiled if they stay here. There is so much security across all the streets of Brisbane. Narendra Modi will definitely make use of it to meet as much of Indian community as he can. There are a number of Indian businessmen here who are hoping that they could get a chance to meet Narendra Modi, though they have nothing as yet. And I don't think with the kind of protocol and with the kind of security that's in place, they'll be able to make it. But as of now, whatever few events they have, Brisbane won't be that lucky as far as the Indians getting to meet Narendra Modi would be. But Sydney is the luckiest perhaps, and Melbourne, because there's a select gathering of 500 CEOs and a total of 1,000 people, which will have Australians as well, Simi. But I must tell you here that when we talk about Sydney and his event in Sydney, we were told that it's not just Indians, but there are Pakistanis, there are Bangladeshis, and there are people from Afghanistan who want to attend the ceremony. Almost 500 people from these 3 countries have bought tickets for that particular Narendra Modi show. So while there are Indians who want to see their Prime Minister, there are also other people who want to know why the entire frenzy. Why are the people so excited to meet their Prime Minister?
Absolutely. Lots of excitement around Prime Minister Modi. This, of course, is the first time that he's visiting Australia. Also the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister to the country in 28 years. Shweta, also interesting that you pointed out that Melbourne event where he'll be meeting a select group of 500 CEOs. Modi likely to ask them to look at India and invest in the country. Make in India is something that Modi has been pushing for, and he's actually wooing the NRI community also to use the better trade and the improved trade and investment environment in the country, which has just started under the Modi government.
Right. That is the entire idea behind Narendra Modi wanting to meet the CEOs. And interestingly, today when the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is meeting. Is addressing the joint session of Parliament in Canberra, there is a lot of excitement in Australia, and you'll see banners, business with Australia. So we have to see if Make in India and business in Australia can bring out something in common, and they can be something interesting and fruitful for both the countries. So definitely the Gujarati in Narendra Modi that he always points to will definitely want to encash the business in Australia for a Make in India. The point is, how much can he get out of it, and how much can Australia get out of it? What kind of a relationship it's going to be? It's not been a very what do you call it? A very lucrative approach towards this relationship from either India or Australia in the years that have been. But can it change from here on? There have been talks on a number of issues when we talk about energy. When we talk about coal, but what are the other avenues that Narendra Modi can explore and perhaps get for Make in India?
Shweta Singh, thanks so much for taking us through developments on the ground. Shweta Singh reporting from Brisbane. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Air India plane has landed there in Brisbane. The Prime Minister is in Australia to attend the G-20 summit. Today, of course, is a holiday in Brisbane in view of tight security that's been put into place. The Prime Minister is expected to meet British Prime Minister David Cameron this afternoon, followed by a dinner with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Modi is also expected to kickstart his India-Australia bilateral this afternoon with a visit to the Queensland Technical University. Of course, his interaction with the Indian community in Brisbane will be limited. Narendra Modi, of course, expected to address the Indian community at a mega event that has been organized in Sydney's Alphonse Arena, where close to 16,000 people will have already registered for the event. Massive preparations are underway. Organizers trying to literally beat the success of the Madison Square Garden event in New York that saw a massive response from the Indian diaspora. These are live visuals that we're getting you from Brisbane. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expected to step out of his plane any moment now. There's also a small team that's gathered there to welcome the Prime Minister. But as Shweta Singh was reporting, not too many members of the Indian community there. There are not too many Indians in Brisbane as opposed to Sydney, where they are present in large numbers, which is why the grand celebration and the grand event has also been organized in Sydney. Of course, we're also being told that a special train will be ferrying people from Brisbane to Sydney. It's been called... It's been named Modi Express. This is the first time a train service has been named after an Indian Prime Minister. It will be ferrying more than 200 people from Brisbane to Sydney for Sunday's mega event. These are live pictures that we're getting you from Brisbane. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expected to show up any minute now. Prime Minister Modi's visit, of course, has very strong business and commerce agenda. He's also looking at discussing the black money issue. Now, a special train from Melbourne to Sydney will be ferrying more than 200 people who will be attending Modi's speech at the Alphonse Arena. This is the first time a train service in Australia has been named after an Indian Prime Minister. TV Today's Shweta Singh gets on board the Modi Express.
We are at the Olympic Park station in Sydney. It may look like a normal railway station in Australia right now, but everything is going to change on the 17th of November when Modi Express will arrive. What will be so special, Mr. Dhankar?
Well, the concept of Modi Express itself is very special. When the program was declared for Modi ji that he will be speaking, addressing the Indian diaspora in Sydney, so we had maximum number of people coming from Melbourne because it is second largest population in Melbourne. So there are more than 1,000 people are coming from Melbourne.
And how many are the lucky ones who will be travelling on the train?
There are 220 lucky ones who would be able to on board on this Modi Express, and for them the festival, for the excitement would be started the moment they board this train.
So is it going to be special? It is going to be decorated in a special way with the tricolour?
Yes, definitely. The whole celebration, the whole train itself is a concept of celebration. We have the decoration inside. It would be decorated by tricolour balloons, posters, and Modi ji's posters. It will also be having number of cuisine items, and the food would be served in Gujarati cuisine and other Indian cuisines. Yeah.
So the people must be excited. How long does it take to reach from Melbourne to Sydney, and is it an overnight journey?
Yes, it's 870 kilometers distance, and it would be covered. The train would be leaving around 8 p.m. In the night, and it would reach here at 6:50 a.m. So the whole night is full of excitement, full of fun for them.
Nobody's going to sleep. It's a sleepless night, but in an exciting sort of a way. We've heard that the Victorian Premier is going to flag it off.
Yes, that's a very latest news, and it shows how Indian politics and Australian politics is coming together, and that Modi Express would be flagged off by Premier of Victoria.
So did it have a special price to it, or whoever came early got the ticket?
No, there is no special price to it. It's a normal fare, which is $100. But the special price or a special incentive they are getting is to basically be part of this history, be part of this festivity.
Thank you so much for talking to Headlines.
Thank you.
So it's going to be special. When the 220 odd people reach Sydney, they just have to go across the road to the arena to listen to Mr. Modi. With camera person Ashok Bhanot, this is Shweta Singh in Sydney for Headlines Today.
All right, Shweta Singh reporting on the Modi Express. They'll be ferrying people from Melbourne to Sydney for Sunday's grand event. These are pictures that we're getting you from the airport in Brisbane, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi's plane has landed. This is the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister in 28 years. Prime Minister is expected to kickstart his India-Australia bilateral today with a visit to Queensland Technical University. He's also expected to meet British Prime Minister David Cameron at about 4 p.m. India time. He'll be having a dinner that's been hosted by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Prime Minister Modi's visit has a strong business and commerce agenda. Of course, black money is also an issue that the Prime Minister will be taking up when he meets global leaders. Now, as we continue to get you those live visuals, here's also a look at celebrations that are taking place in Australia. Gujarati Garba has become the flavour of all seasons. First, it was the Madison Square Garden, and now the Sydney Olympic Park. Rahul Kawal traces the beats that Sydney is swaying to.
It's late into the night. We're in a warehouse here in Sydney where a whole bunch of young people are practicing to perform the Garba and the Dandiya before Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 17th of November at Sydney's Olympic Park. Let's speak to some of these people and see the kind of preparations they've made. I'll go across to this lady first. Ma'am, tell us, how excited are you about performing before the Prime Minister, and how long have you all been practicing?
This practice we are doing from last 3 weeks. And we are doing 8:30 to 11 every day. And if you ask about excitement, we can express through our dance. It's very hard to express by words. And everyone is here very excited because this dance, that means I'm talking about especially Garba, Modi ji start in Gujarat, like vibrant Gujarat. Now it's vibrant India and also in Australia. So which is very lucky we are, and we are trying our best to make happy our PM Modi. So let's see how we go.
Okay, because there was a similar performance which was on at the Madison Square Garden in New York. Did you all get to see the Madison Square Garden performance by everyone?
Yes, I did see that.
So are you competing with MSG?
Not really. We are original. We're not competing with anyone.
What is it that makes you original?
You'll see it on that day, 17th.
Let me speak to this young man over here. Tell me, did you see what happened at Madison Square Garden? Who'll come number one, Madison Square Garden or Sydney's Olympic Park?
Sydney is gonna be a number one without
Why?
any doubt, because we have seen the whole event which happened at Madison Square, and we thought that whatever event we're gonna have in Australia, it's gonna be a big among all the events.
It's late into the evening. They've been practicing for more than 3 hours. They're sweating profusely, but despite that, the enthusiasm is not waning. Apart from everything else, it's also a great party. It's coming together, the Indian community bonding on the occasion of the Prime Minister's visit here in Australia.
That was TV Today's Managing Editor Rahul Kawal reporting on preparations that are underway for the grand event that's been organized by the Indian community in Sydney on Sunday. More than 16,000 people will be attending Prime Minister Modi's speech live. Of course, big screens have also reportedly been put up around the city, just as we saw in New York when Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended a massive gathering at Madison Square Garden. The pictures on your screens are of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's plane that's landed in Brisbane. The Prime Minister is here to attend the G-20 summit. Of course, today a holiday has been declared in Brisbane in view of tight security. Lots of international leaders are expected to reach Australia today for the G-20 summit. The pictures of the team that's reached the airport to welcome Prime Minister Modi to Australia. The Prime Minister will be kick-starting his India-Australia bilateral with a visit to Queensland University at about 12 this afternoon. This will be followed by a meeting with British Prime Minister David Cameron, and then finally Modi will be ending his day with a dinner with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The Prime Minister, of course, is also expected to address a large gathering of Indians in Australia in Sydney on Sunday. Prime Minister is also expected to meet about 500 Indian CEOs in Melbourne. As TV Today's Shweta Singh was reporting, the business community also extremely excited about Modi's visit. Of course, the Prime Minister expected to talk about his Make in India campaign and will be looking to invite these business leaders to come and invest in India, to use this opportunity, to use this economic environment, which is actually turned quite positive after the BJP government came to power, asking them to use these opportunities to invest in the country. Let's get a word from TV Today's Managing Editor Rahul Kawal, who's with us on the phone line. Rahul, Narendra Modi finally arriving there in Brisbane. Lots of excitement today. It's a holiday in Brisbane, but Prime Minister Modi has a packed schedule.
Yes, it's actually quite amazing because he's come in, we're already knackered with all the travel that we've gone through, and he's got programs lined up from virtually the moment he arrives. There's no, and this is something that I'm noticing now, Simi, whether it is New York, whether it is Australia, he's been already in that jet for a while. But the moment he lands at about, he's landed, and then immediately after that, in a short while from now, he's got an event at the Queensland University of Technology where he's checking out new advances in technology. Moments after that, he's got a meeting with David Cameron, the British Prime Minister. Then he's got a dinner happening with Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan. This is packed, and this is before the official function at the G20 starts. That's tomorrow and the day after, where he's got a very busy schedule all through the day. And then there's no question of rest here in Australia, thanks to the Prime Minister. He's got a very busy schedule today. Yes, it's true that there is a fair amount of excitement, but the excitement is much more in Sydney. And the reason for that is with so many world leaders here in Australia, they've barricaded most of the important roads going into the main city of Brisbane, and everybody is virtually out in the on the periphery. So they're not allowing people in, at least in the numbers that they would like to come. So I think a lot of the street excitement that you'll get to see, the colour, the festivity, that will probably happen more in Sydney. This is the business end of tour, and here, Sydney, the focus is on spending time, according to the MEA, with world leaders whom he hasn't had an opportunity to spend much time with so far. So there is, the Prime Minister of Canada, there is the head of state of Mexico, there's Angela Merkel, there's the leaders from France. The attempt is those leaders whom he hasn't been able to get to know well, spend time with, he's using the platform of the G20 to meet with them on the sidelines. That's the way the next 2 days have been structured.
Absolutely, Rahul. And as you take us through developments on the ground, and you tell us what's actually packed for as far as the schedule of Prime Minister Modi is concerned, we're actually seeing a group of people emerge from that Air India craft that's landed at the Brisbane airport. Prime Minister Modi here to attend the G20 summit. And Rahul, what we've been seeing over the last few international tours that the Prime Minister has undertaken, his body language has become a lot more confident. He's more confident when he meets world leaders. He's sure of what he's looking at in terms of takeaways. He knows that he wants to make a pitch for investment in India. He's got his agenda completely clear.
No, absolutely, Simi. He's emerging very fast as a world leader in his own right, not just because he's Prime Minister of India and because he leads 1/6 of humanity, he holds an important position. But as a man whose ideas, whose thoughts, whose views hold a certain position, and it's very early into his Prime Ministership, but that has already begun to happen. You saw what Obama told Modi when they met in Myanmar, that you're a man of action, sir. That is already an image that is gaining hold, and which is why all these world leaders are so keen on meeting the Prime Minister, because they believe that here's someone with whom you can do business. Here's someone who will make it easier for French companies, German companies, Canadian companies, Australian companies to come into India to do business, ensure that regulatory bottlenecks are taken care of, that the tardy Indian bureaucracy doesn't hold processes up. That's the immigrant to acquire. There's also a certain novelty around him, which is also why he's had more requests for bilaterals at the G20 than any of the other countries whose leaders are present here in Brisbane at this time. But that's also because he's the first Prime Minister. He's just coming in. He rides on a huge wave of support and enthusiasm. That's why there's a huge amount of interest around him. I want to focus for a moment, Sini, on the agenda for the G20 dialogue. Now, after St. Petersburg, they're meeting here. India is seen as a villain by holding up the free trade facilitation agreement. And I spoke to Suresh Prabhu yesterday. He's Modi Sherpa. Last time on Tek Singh Ahluwalia was Manmohan Singh Sherpa. They're trying to find a way out of this, because what Modi would not want is to be seen as somebody holding up free trade, something which is good for the whole world, something which potentially could add 2% extra of GDP to the world gross domestic product, which could be $2 trillion is what people here are saying. So he wants to ensure that despite India's commitments on food security, despite the commitment to provide food to the poorest of the poor, India doesn't end up stonewalling the free trade facilitation agreement, which is what happened last time. And that solution is being found, which is what Suresh Prabhu, he was working till late into the night last night, working with his delegates and officials, trying to find a solution to this. And they're hopeful that when this question comes up, and at some point in time, it is bound to come up, where questions will be asked of India that, you're the one country whose Prime Minister talks about trade, about opening up boundaries.